Hey guys, hello everyone. I'm Jigar Pathak, working in industry almost like 20 plus years now. Welcome all of you to the Azure AI landscape and consuming Azure AI services. In this particular session, we will be going through with understanding how Azure AI service landscape looks like, what kind of options available, from the development point of view, what all the approach probably we need to follow along with it, and probably we can understand that how your development activity is going to be you can leverage and you will be able to work with your particular end-to-end solution the way it is expected. So I'll stop sharing my video and then we can get started with our presentation, and we'll have some particular hands-on activity also at the end of this particular session as well. Yeah. So let's get started. So here we will be understanding about how the overall Azure AI services landscape looks like, and we'll be understanding the consuming Azure AI services. So first we will understand uh, like different particular options. So first thing in place, we will be starting with pillar of AI, AI on Azure, using Azure AI services for enterprise applications, and all these activity will be followed with the demo what we are planning to cover up at the end of this particular whole module. So ultimately, the goal over here is that to understand or getting started your journey with Azure AI services. In this particular whole module or the session, we will be leveraging variety of options, and we will be talking about those particular scenario ways and use cases which we can use it in our enterprise world. So first thing in place, uh, what is AI all about, right? So nowadays, from the development perspective, you must have heard about, you might have gone through that what all the different AI technology or AI capabilities we are using in our particular day-to-day enterprise world, or in our particular day-to-day solution, what we are like looking at it. And in that particular case, we'll be understanding that how this particular approach probably we can take care in our particular business use case what we have. So AI is basically offering you wide range of you can say services, which includes visual perception, text analysis, uh, conversations, decision making, and a variety of particular use cases will be part of it, right? So here I can say the AI basically offers you a kind of ability of digital computer and computer controlled robot, which performs some of the common task with some particular intelligence, and then it will help you out in terms of working with a variety of tasks or variety of activities the way it is expected, right? So we need to figure it out that how this particular whole approach going to be work out. It will help you out in terms of decision making, providing some reasoning, and understanding the various particular aspects throughout the solution what we are like looking at it. So the ultimate goal over here is that from the cloud point of view, right? From the Azure perspective, like how Microsoft Azure is offering you a particular AI platform, and what kind of like approach maybe we can take care. So those are some of the interactive options we are going to talk about, and will understand that how these things going to be help you out in terms of working with your AI related activities and other stuff the way it is expected, right? Now, first thing in place, we need to understand that what is the what all the core pillar of my AI, which I can understand, or probably you can say, you will be able to get started when it comes to AI services perspective, what we are like looking at it, right? So the primary objective is that when you are looking into the AI related activities and all, right? So as I said, the four particular core components. So AI increasingly basically includes some of the digital assistants, which includes in your home, cell phones, some of the automotive technologies, or from the industry point of view, if I'm talking about, right? So you must have seen like nowadays connected cars, you might be using Copilot, you might be using like different particular text to speech and all that particular mechanism, right? So the AI basically fall into the category. There are like variety of definitions of AI. I can say some of them technical, some of them philosophical. But in general terms, we think in terms of AI is a kind of like software technology that exhibits one or more human-like capabilities, right? So those human-like capabilities in terms of visual perception, text analysis, and conversation, speech, right, and decision making. So, visual perception, if I want to elaborate, so it's a kind of ability which allows you to use your computer vision capabilities to accept and interpret some of the process. Say, for example, you wanted to upload some of the images. Like one of the use case I would like to share over here, so there was one particular business use case was developed for one of the government. So the government offering some particular grant to some of the rural areas in particular country, and they were supporting those rural folks to build some particular sort of infrastructure, probably for their day-to-day usage and all that. Now, to achieve this particular activity, government supposed to provide some financial grant to those particular rural folks, and for that, uh, for the proof of the infrastructure building or the execution, they are supposed to click the photographs and upload into the system. Now here, whatever the photos are getting uploaded into the system, those photos supposed to be validated by the system that okay, the so and so person who built that infrastructure, whether it's valid or not, or is it a right infrastructure, is it following some of the standards or guideline or not, right? In that case, they are supposed to validate those particular images. So in that case, they were using this visual perception where the photographs are uploaded into the system. They are scanning the whole images, and then based on the image classification, they are approving or denying the grant back into the system. So that is like one of the standard example maybe we can think through. Text analysis, like it's more about NLP, natural language processing, which basically help you out in terms of reading and working with some of the like text analytics related activities and all, and it will provide you kind of semantic meaning from text, right? So usually you must have seen in terms of like let's say there are some of the real-time chat conversations, or maybe you can say text to speech related integration. What you have, probably you may like integrate accordingly. The speech is also one of the components. So this is the combination of speech capability along with the ability to apply NLP, analysis of text, which enables a form of human computer interaction, and that's become like known as conversational AI, right? So like nowadays, the bot service, what we are considered like, you can consider the variety of speech to text mechanism nowadays, you must have seen, right? So they are like bot kind of mechanism what we get. You also have decision making. So decision making is more about where you can have kind of ability to use some past experience which you might have learned from the previous activities, and then probably it will help you out in terms of taking certain type of decisions, right? So usually one of the simple example is like weather forecastings and all that particular stuff. So in general, like whenever you are planning with any of your particular approach, then AI basically help you out with all these particular four human-like capabilities, which basically we can translate and transform in our day-to-day business use case, what we are like looking at it. Now, how this particular whole approach probably we can take care. So here I can say the pillar of AI, or the ability what we are expecting back into the system, right? So there are several terms which we are people are using about AI, right? So here probably we should understand that what all the maybe you can say pillar of the AI, probably we can start with it. So starting with the most bottom layer in terms of data science. So usually data science is a kind of focus layer where you can have a kind of statistical techniques which you can uncover and visualize some relationships and patterns in the data, and you can define some experimental models that help you to explore some of those particular patterns in your day-to-day activities. So for example, data scientists might gather some of the samples of data about some, let's say, population, or probably like recently we all have gone through with this pandemic situation, so maybe we can collect the data from the pandemic situations across the globe, and those data may get collected from the different geographical area, and those data will get combined with the overall solutions, or particularly maybe you can say overall approach, and then probably you can analyze that specific data, or like informations what we are like looking at it. So here what we need to understand that and this particular techniques basically help you out in terms of collecting and combining those particular data, and using those particular data and informations as in like providing as an input for the human interactions, and you can get the benefit of those particular informations what you have collected. So by doing this data science activity, right, so you can have mathematical and statistical techniques to analyze your particular data, and it will help you out to optimize your particular result based on the analysis what we are like looking at it. Now, the above layer of data science is machine learning. So here you can use the data, and maybe you can say whatever the mathematical and statistical techniques what we have analyzed. So machine learning is the kind of subset of your data science itself, and that basically deals with the training and validation of your predictive model. So whatever data you have explored or gathered back into the system, machine learning basically provide you a kind of predictive data analysis model, and then it will go ahead with further activity in place. So typically, a data scientist prepares the data and then use it to train a model based on an algorithm, and that basically exploit the relationship between the features and the data to predict values for some of the unknown labels or some of the unknown data is what we are like looking at it. So here probably we can think of, like, let's say a data scientist might use the data they have collected to train model that predicts the annual. Let's assume that probably uh, if I'm considering the same use case of the pandemic situation, so they might collect the data from the different geography, looking at the situation, that how looking at previous trend of pandemic situation growth, or increase or decrease the number of cases and all. So looking at the data, looking at the informations, they can predict, or they can come up with some particular number of uh, looking at the current set of people, the chances of maybe the growth in terms of cases, or decrease the number of cases, that those kind of predictions probably they can get to know, and probably like define some particular informations based on that. So here, basically, the role of machine learning is to provide you a kind of prediction in terms of the data what we have collected. And the last but not least, the topmost layer is the artificial intelligence. So this is something more about intelligent software apps and agents. So AI basically here, I mean, you can say usually, but not always. It's built on machine learning to create some software that interprets one or more characteristic of human intelligence. So for example, here whatever the data you are providing into the system, it will get those particular informations, and then probably it will give you some particular sort of result accordingly, right? So you may have some particular uh, like say probably a kind of informations what you're capturing, you will be able to get some particular defined results at the end. back into the system what we are like looking at it. So ultimately, from the development point of view, right? So, for example, if I'm planning to get started with my AI journey, then in that particular case, we can have some of the options, or probably you can say it will provide you a kind of solutions where you can build on top of it, and it will help you out in terms of going through with your overall solution to be integrated back into the system. Now, along with this, when you are planning to go ahead with AI building and all, right? So, first thing in place, you need to identify, or probably you can say, what all the consideration you need to keep in mind while going through with your particular AI provisioning, or probably you can say the development activity or approach, what you are like looking at it. Say, for example, as in developer, probably you are expecting that, hey, I'll be deploying my particular solutions. Maybe with the choice of my particular tools and technology, I can use one of my you can say development IDE, and with the help of it, it will help you out in terms of developing your solutions. Now, usually being a developer, nowadays you must have seen that there are so many misuse of AI as well, right? Like those deepfake videos, and like there are a lot of scams going on. So here we have to use our particular AI with responsibility. So I can call it out as in responsible AI and ethics, right? So here it is important that being a developer, you should consider the impact of the AI in your day-to-day activity or on human life. So in that particular case, we need to identify that AI solutions, what we are planning to come up with it can have a significant benefits in terms of making applications user friendly, but it can also lead users to place a great deal of trust in the application's ability to make some particular correct decisions, and then they can follow that particular solutions in their business use case. Now here there are a couple of consideration we need to keep in mind. So one of them is basically fairness. So AI system should treat all people fairly. For example, suppose you create machine learning model to support a loan approval application for particular banking sectors, right? So the model should make prediction of whether or not the loan should be approved without incorporating any bias, in any bias based on gender, ethnicity, or other factors that might result in unfair advantage or disadvantage to particular group of users or applicants, who whomsoever is planning to go ahead with that, right? So fairness in terms of AI is basically more about, without any bias, probably you can have a kind of consideration of using that particular solution for your environment, right? So that is one of the consideration. The second is basically reliability and safety. So AI system should perform reliably and safely. For example, you can consider AI-based software system for autonomous vehicle, or maybe machine learning model that diagnose patients' symptoms and recommendations, and they can provide like some prescriptions along with that, right? So unreliability in these kind of systems can result in sustainable risk of human life. So in that particular case, AI-based software application development must be subjected to rigorous testing and development management process to ensure that they work as expected before like going final release, and probably the end user can work with it, right? So that is something you should have reliability and safety testing on top of it. Privacy and security. So this is something, AI system should be secure and respect privacy. The machine learning model on which AI system are based rely on large volume of data, which may contain some personal detail that must be kept it private, right? So even after models are trained and system is in production, they use some new data to make predictions, or take some particular right actions on top of it. So basically, these data, probably we should have particular appropriate safeguard to protect data, and customer content you can implement with those particular terms in terms of activity. We can have inclusiveness. So AI system should empower everyone and engage people right? So AI brings benefit to all part of society, regardless of physical ability, gender, sexual orientations, ethnicity, or any other factor what we are considering, right? So it shouldn't be like focus on particular set of group of people, and also it includes everybody. Transparency in terms of AI system based on machine learning models. So, I mean, you should generally make users aware of factors that may affect the accuracy of in its predictions and all, such as the number of cases used to train the model, or maybe there's some specific feature that have the most influence over its predictions. You should also share it, right? And last but not least, in terms of accountability, so people should be accountable for AI systems, although many AI systems seems to operate autonomously. So ultimately, it's a responsibility of the developers who train and validate those model, which people are going to use it. So you have to, like, to help to meet the goal. Designers and developers of AI-based solutions should work within a framework of governance and organizational principles to make sure that the solution meets the ethical and legal standards that are clearly identified from the industry, and people can use it in that particular case, right? So that is something probably we need to think about it. Now here, this is something core information about what is all AI all about. Now, to understand the AI landscape on Azure, so here we will be talking about some of the standard AI related services what Microsoft is offering in terms of different category. We will be understanding that, okay, being a developer, if I'm planning to go ahead with my particular solution, then what sort of approach probably I can target, and then probably I can build or use them in our particular day-to-day solutions, right? So here, uh, Azure AI services, if I wanted to categorize, so Azure AI services are cloud-based services which are encapsulating your all AI capabilities, and instead of just having a single product, you can think of AI services. It's a kind of set of individual services that you can use it for developing your solutions, and probably you can use them intelligently in your particular application stack. What we are like looking at it. So Azure AI Services offers variety of pre-built AI capabilities across the multiple categories defined with some of the use case what you see over here, right? So for example, it will be language specific, speech specific, vision, generative AI, and all. So different set of particular options are there, right? So probably we can identify one of these particular capabilities, and then probably you can target in terms of developing your particular solutions in your day-to-day activity what we are like looking at it, right? So it will help you out in terms of focusing on some of the approach, and then probably you may go ahead with those activities the way it is expected. So it's more about like planning and understanding the scope of your particular development track what we are like looking at it, right? Now here, when you are understanding that, okay, yeah, I mean, I'm planning to get started with this particular development approach via understanding some of the scenario, right? Say for example, if you're planning to go ahead with open AI, or you're looking into vision AI vision services, or language interactions, or even AI search kind of activities and all that, you need a kind of set of components which you can leverage, or maybe the kind of infrastructure understanding, or the overall landscape provided by Microsoft, the overall AI ecosystem you need to understand, and then how you can get started your development journey. Probably you need to think about it. So here, I have broken down that whole piece of AI related understanding in a particular couple of area, and I'll show you like one of the big picture of Microsoft AI ecosystem as well. So that will help you out to understand that going through with the AI landscape in our particular enterprise world, then how that is something going to be available, or probably it will help you out in terms of planning and implementing some of those activity the way it is expected, right? So the first criteria, we always begin with setting up our AI infrastructure. So the core layer is basically to get started like up and running with your AI infrastructure, which requires your the backend system, where you may include your CPU or GPU power, based compute infrastructure, which helps you to leverage the capability of the infra, and on top of it you can build your particular data layer and as well as the compute where you can run a certain set of activities, and on top of it you can have your particular AI model to be up and running and get some particular insight on top of it. So here, in terms of AI infrastructure point of view, you can have AI on data. So probably you can leverage some of the predefined data platform related services in place. Say, for example, you can leverage Azure Data Lake services, database services in terms of Cosmos DB or SQL, Azure SQL DB, right? So those are some of the standard database SQL, NoSQL approach. Probably you can go ahead with it, and it will help you out in terms of planning and managing your particular data model on top of it. The compute point of view, you may run your particular batch services. You can have some of the edge compute resources also available, or probably you can leverage some of the open source path capability to run your particular compute resources on top of it. So the first layer is basically you need to go ahead or get started with your AI infrastructure to be up and running. The second layer is more about having your uh, what kind of like capabilities you are planning to leverage on top of this particular AI infrastructure. Are you planning to build conversational AI services, or you are looking for some of the trained services in terms of cognitive model, right? So, for example, if you're looking for OCR, optimal character recognition, trained services, right? So, for example, you wanted to see that people who all are uploading images in some of the session, whether those images are like not having any inappropriate content, they are like valid content uploaded by the end users and all that, and then accordingly you may go ahead with those particular process. So probably cognitive services, maybe you can use it, or ML services, like probably you can come up with your own predictive analysis engine, and then you wanted to leverage the backend infrastructure. So you can decide that what is your business goal, and then accordingly you can build on top of it. You may identify the predefined Azure services to leverage some of these particular capabilities, like probably from the language, speech, vision, or generative point of view, and then probably you may go ahead with that specific approach, and then accordingly you will be able to get started with your particular solution the way it is expected. So you can leverage some of the standard Azure AI service capabilities, and then accordingly you may simply plan and manage and work with that particular development activities the way it is expected. Say, for example, if you're looking for cognitive search, right? So here, or probably the AI search mechanism, what we are planning to go ahead with it, right? So probably it will help you out in terms of integrating with your existing data set. It will help you out in terms of filtering your particular informations and the data what we are expecting, and then accordingly you will be able to go ahead with your particular end-to-end solution the way it is expected. So ultimately, the goal over here is that in terms of planning and working with your particular AI capabilities, you will be able to identify and visualize that how these particular components going to be work out for you, and then accordingly you may simply plan and manage and work with those particular component the way it is expected, right? So that's basically a kind of approach maybe we can target, or we will be able to go ahead with some of the activity or some of the approach what we need to take care of it, right? So that's one of the options maybe you can think of. Now, the second approach is more about the last but not least in terms of development point of view. Now, let's say, for example, if you are planning to, as I said, we need to understand that how we can build and develop or go through with some sort of development activities and approach back into the system. Then in that particular case, you will be able to like target your particular development activities, where you can identify that you may come up with some sort of choice of your tool chain. Probably, if you are planning to go ahead with your own custom development, you can use Visual Studio Code. Or if you're planning to go ahead with some online Microsoft Azure provided studio, then probably you can go ahead with Azure AI Studios, ML Studios, or probably some of the third-party toolchain if you're planning to integrate with it. You can use TensorFlow or Cafe, PyCharm, or Jupyter Notebooks and all of that, and you can go ahead with your particular development activities the way it is expected. So this is something basically your overall development approach probably you can target, and more or less you will be focusing on this particular area as in developer perspective, and you will be able to take care of your particular approach and activity on top of this particular overall services or activity what we are like looking at it. Now along with this, in terms of overall Microsoft AI ecosystem, this is the source of this image is from the Microsoft, so courtesy from the Microsoft event. So this image basically highlights that the area of the previous slide which I talked about, that was more about the area which we can focus on and develop our solution. So here if you see the different segment of this particular AI ecosystem, like if you're planning to go ahead with generative AI, if you're planning to build your own particular custom solution, so more or less you will be able to leverage your particular different particular set of components, and then you will be able to build your own custom solutions the way it is expected. So from the development perspective, you are more focused with AI studios, right, where you will be able to go through with some of the approach, or maybe you can say you will be able to go through with some of the activity, and you may simplify that you can have the AI studios what you are looking at it, and then in that particular case if you are planning to go through with any of this particular solution approach or any of this particular activity the way it is expected, you may simply go ahead and you just need to go through with those particular activity the way it is expected. So as I said, like it will include your developer point of view, AI Studio, the Azure AI services, the backend you can use machine learning models and services, and then you can leverage some of the Azure specific infrastructure what you are like looking at it. Now, here we need to understand the Azure AI service usage from the cloud service point of view, that many different particular enterprises uses this particular overall solution, or maybe you can say they are expecting certain type of approach, or maybe you can say certain type of activity where they are expecting to utilize this particular AI capability in their enterprise world, right? So this is something we will divide into three different areas. So most of the time, from the enterprise solution point of view, we are expecting security. We are looking for hosting the AI services, and we are looking for continuous monitoring of this particular AI services, because the backend system which Microsoft is providing, it's a fully managed AI services, right? So in that particular case, we are going to explore this three area. The first one is the security. I'll explain this particular whole component one by one. We'll be talking about the hosting part of it. So here we will be talking about container based hosting, and last but not least in terms of monitoring perspective, right? So this three layer we're going to talk about when it comes to enterprise point of view, where we are expecting this particular AI solution to be built and hosted and managed in our day-to-day activity, and then probably we can leverage our overall solution the way it is expected. So starting from the security perspective, right? So basically, Azure AI service security, basically, whenever we are planning to leverage this particular component, so it always starts with some of the standard approach or standard activity what we are looking at it. So the criteria what we need to identify, or maybe you can say we need to consider that from the development point of view, you are going to connect with your AI services with the endpoint keys. As a developer, you can leverage some of your AI SDKs, and that is something available for variety of frameworks what you are like looking at, right? So in all of that, you will be able to leverage that, and it will help you out in terms of working with those particular activity the way it is expected. So here we can identify some of the options, and then probably we can go ahead with the activity or the module what we are planning to take care of it, right? So here from the authentication point of view, if you see this particular diagram, so we do have 1 2 3 bullet point. So starting with first options, where you are provisioning your AI services, your AI cognitive services. So here you need a particular authentication. The first option is like the app which is going to interact with the AI services with some of the authentication authorization. In that particular case, we are going to use Azure AD, right? So Entra ID. So here we will be using Microsoft Entra ID authentication mechanism, which basically allow you to generate your particular service principal. And with that particular service principal, you as a developer you can uh, a- a- as a developer you can authenticate and authorize your particular application to use this particular consume your AI services back into the system. So in that particular case, you can create, capture, and store your particular services somewhere into your centralized location, right? Maybe you can use Azure Key Vault as a service, which allows you to integrate your particular key parameters, and you can securely interact with your particular services the way it is expected. So here you will be using a particular kind of secure mechanism to interact as a developer with your AI services, where you will be able to create and configure your account and you will be able to use it. The second layer is basically more about uh, working with your containerized approach, like in terms of hosting your particular AI services in cloud. So here I can say container basically enables you to host your AI services either on on-premise or in Azure. So for example, if your application uses some sensitive data which is hosted somewhere on on-premise SQL Server, and you need to call your Azure AI services, which you can deploy it somewhere in cloud. So uh, uh, from the compliance point of view, probably you can host your particular containerized approach on premise, and then it will help you out in terms of interacting with your on-premise data, and then you can have lower latency, and then it will help you out in terms of connecting and accessing your particular services on top of it. Now, of course, I mean, we are not going to deep dive into what is container and all about, but it just to give you a kind of glance that container is like a kind of independent package which allows your application or your services to run inside that. It's provide you a kind of fully isolation based environment which you can deploy, whether it's on premise or whether it's in cloud, wherever you are like looking at it. So here probably if you are planning to leverage containerized approach, then probably you can go ahead with Docker, or probably you can go ahead with the Azure Container Instance, or probably the AKS like Azure Kubernetes or Azure Container Apps kind of environment, and you can leverage them in terms of working with this particular activity the way it is expected. So here you can pick up container Azure Cognitive Services based images, which is provided by Microsoft. So if you see the number one bullet is basically container image deployment to container host, and that is something you can leverage it with whether it's like Docker, ACI, or AKS kind of hosting environment. You can dump your particular container AI services on top of it, and that is something you can run it on top of your particular overall environment, and then you will be able to use that, right? So it will provide you a kind of containerized operations or management layer on top of it. So the advantage is that you don't have to rely completely on Azure. You can move your particular services wherever you want it, and it will help you out in terms of hosting your particular runtime environment wherever you are like looking at it, right? So that way, at least you can plan and manage and host your particular AI services wherever you want it, and you can play around with those particular activity the way it is expected into your enterprise world. Now, last but not least, in terms of monitoring point of view. So here we understood that, uh, of course, security, hosting, they are definitely a pillar of your particular solution. But at the same time, we have to take care of monitoring of it, right? So here we are looking for different set of monitoring metrics, right? So there are different set of data getting generated. So in that particular case, here when you are planning to go ahead with monitoring your particular components or your services, you will get advantage of a variety of options. So here you will be able to get your metrics, your log analytics, your alert mechanism you can set up, and you can also have diagnostic log on top of your services what you are planning to leverage in terms of your overall environment what we have, right? So here probably you can create your particular alert rules. You can define that what is happening in your particular environment. Say for example, you can view your particular AI monitoring metrics in your particular page, and you will get to know that, okay, what is the usage of my AI services. From the dashboard you will see the number of hit, number of consumption of that particular services and all that. So it will provide you kind of detailed insight about your particular overall platform. Say for example, diagnostic log. So diagnostic log basically enables you to capture rich operational data for an Azure AI services resources, which can be used to analyze service usage and troubleshoot the problem what you are like looking at. You can create resources for some of the diagnostic log storage, right? So probably you can go ahead with Azure storage or Azure log analytics, where you can dump your particular diagnostic logs, and then probably you can later use it for your analysis purpose and all of that. So or maybe let's say alert mechanism. So you can define the alert based on the scope that which service or what activity log you wanted to monitor, and you wanted to trigger or execute that particular alert rule for your services or for your activity, you will be able to do so. So here basically Azure will provide you a kind of all the possible approach from the enterprise point of view, and you will be able to leverage some of these particular capability of the Azure point of view what we are like looking at it. So here we talked about some of the different type of approach and options. Now last but not least, in terms of understanding that how this particular activity looks like, right? So here I'll be sharing a couple of use case or example where you guys can work with your particular like hands-on activity. So what I'm trying to showcase over here, that I don't want you guys to download or install anything on your local laptop if you want to leverage anything existing directly from the Microsoft Learn. So there are some of these sandbox environments are given, right? So here we'll take a look at it, one of the exercise where using a container to host our particular AI services. So for this, there is a some of the prerequisite. Maybe you might need your free trial, right? So probably you can sign up for your free trial Azure subscription, and that is something you will be able to go ahead with your Azure subscription, and then you can launch your particular sandbox environment. So this sandbox environment basically help you out in terms of working with your activity, right? And if in case you are planning to play around with your lab activities and all of that, so Microsoft will provide you this particular sandbox environment, and then probably you will be able to launch that particular activity, and then probably you will be able to like work with the operational activity. Now the good thing is that here the sandbox environment will be provided with some guided practice. So if you are completely new to Azure AI services and all of that, there is a particular step-by-step guide given to you. You can follow that, and then probably it will help you out in terms of working with that particular approach. The advantage of this particular sandbox environment is that you will get some of the tool chain installed, some of the configuration readily available, and you just need to simply follow some of the steps, and then you will be able to work with that specific activity the way it is expected, right? So here you will get this particular instruction on right hand side. If you see, this is something probably we are planning to go ahead with our container based approach, deployment of our AI services with container based approach. So first thing in place, it is asking you for entering password. So on right hand side you have the password. You can click on this T. It will type it out your password and enter into the system. So it will allow you to connect with your environment. And here if you see, you have your particular Visual Studio Code already installed. As I said, like whatever the tools and technology you require, it's already been installed, and you just need to simply go ahead with further activity on top of it, right? So here we can open up the Visual Studio Code. Like, let me run as administrator. Now here we can, Visual Studio Code is one of the open source IDE, so you guys can use it for your development and all of that. So here what we are planning to do is that we are planning to come up with a command palette, and under that we are planning to use git clone, uh, like code repository. So here we can go ahead with git clone, and here you have the URL, so probably you can enter that particular URL what we are like looking at it, and say press enter. So it will start performing cloning option of your particular code repository, right? So maybe you can refer to your particular local repository wherever you want it. So I'll go to my desktop and say new folder, and just provide a name, let's say git. This is my particular folder. I'm looking at it. This is where I'm cloning my particular Git repository. So it will clone your particular code and everything, right? So if you want to open up, you can open, and it will help you out in terms of working with further activity the way it is expected, right? So here I can say, yeah, open, go ahead and open that. So here you will get your particular code repository, whatever the lab files and other things. If you are planning to work with it, you may simply go ahead with the activity. So under this, we're gonna go ahead with lab files. The fourth one, use a container. This is the containerized approach, what we are planning to look into it, right? So there are like different particular sections are there. Now here we will be opening our portal dot like azure.com. So I'll be going ahead with my, let's say, portal, or either you type it out or else you have this section. Maybe you can simply click on it and press enter. So it will open up your portal.azure.com. Log in with your particular credential. So I'm just logging in with my services. So I do have my particular subscription in place. So I'm connecting with my particular Azure portal and the subscription what we are like looking at it. So let my portal get loaded. So here I can search for Azure AI services. Okay. So here you can create. So here what we are planning to do, we are going ahead with Azure AI service multi-service account. Okay. So that is something we are looking at it. So we can click on it and say create. Here I'll be creating new resource group with the name of, like, let's say AI demo -rg. That's my resource group. East US will be my region. Name, I'll say AI landscape demo. The pricing tier is something probably we can go ahead with standard as 0 right now, right? And here I can say, by checking this box, I have read and understood the terms, right? And that is something more about responsible AI related activities what we have. Now, in this particular case, once you provide this, there are other particular configuration is there. So if you're planning to connect and access this particular AI services with your private network, maybe you can define that. If you're planning to integrate with some of the identity access management, right? When you are planning to connect and access securely, you can enable that, and resource tag and other particular configuration in place. So here we are just simply provisioning the simple activity Okay, sometimes this may occur. And here I can say review and create. So here we are creating a particular environment, and we will be provisioning once this particular environment gets created, right? So if you see the deployment succeed, we can go to the resources. Now what we are planning, that we are planning to go ahead with container instance, so that it will help you out that whatever the deployment we are like planning to provide, that is something we're going to leverage. And for that we need to capture this particular key and endpoint what we can leverage in our particular system, right? So here if you see that whatever the services we have provisioned, we can go to the key and endpoints. So here probably I can copy the key one, okay, and let me put it somewhere in notepad, which we can leverage later stage in our activity. So here is my key, what I'm planning to go for it, and the endpoint. Okay, so that's basically the information what I'm planning to go ahead with the AI services. Now the next option is basically we are planning to create a resource with container instance. So here either you go ahead from directly search box, or maybe you can go ahead with create resource, and from here you can search for container instance, right? So all those options are valid. So here I can click on container instance. We'll be using our existing resource group. Container name, so you need to give unique name, AI landscape, issues, availability zone none, right? So that right now, as of now, no availability zone I'm expecting, SKU standard, and the image what I'm expecting, right? So here we are planning to go ahead with providing image. So here you can select other registry, and from the public you have the Microsoft provided container registry, which is basically referring to text analytics, language related services to be identified. So that is something we are planning to provide Linux, and we'll leave it rest of the configuration as is, or if you want to change anything you can. So let's say the memory, maybe here as per the standards given 12 gigs, so I'll just give 12 gigs, and we'll leave rest of the configuration as is, right? So that's something we are providing. In terms of networking, here we can provide a DNS label. So AI landscape, the unique name what we need to give, and the port number from 80 to 5000. This is what the port what we are planning to use it for our activity. So just provide that. Restart policies and all that stuff, we'll leave it as is under the advanced section. Okay, on failure we'll leave it as is, and environment variable what we need to provide over here, that is something we gonna configure it, right? So first thing in place, you will say yes, and the key is something you can provide this, right? It's API key. So here you need to provide the key which you have captured from here. So this is the key what we need to pass, right? The second is again yes, and what we need to do, the billing, okay, and under this we will be referring this endpoint. So we are connecting our AI service resource which we are planning to launch into container instance. That is the option we are providing. And here I'll just say EULA and value will be accept, right? So those are the options we are planning to provide. Let's go ahead with next configuration. So these informations basically refer to my particular environment and it will help you out in terms of interacting with your services. So simply click on review and create and say create. So if you see, this is something, it's pretty much straightforward. As I said, like if you are completely new to the UI and you just wanted to get started, so definitely you can leverage your free trial. You can create your particular free subscription. You will get $200 credits, and with the help of it, you can simply launch this particular sandbox environment. And this particular sandbox environment will basically allow you in terms of working with this activity, or probably you can say it will help you out in terms of planning and managing some of your particular operational activity the way it is expected. So this will take few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, provisioning this particular container instance. It will launch that container image pulled from the services. So if you guys consider this diagram, so here we are using that cognitive language image which is provided by Microsoft. We are dumping that into container instance, and via that we are interacting with our Azure AI services, which can be connected and accessed later stage in our particular further development what we are like looking at it. So this is exactly the same diagrammatic approach we have deployed in this particular exercise. So let this get deployed. We'll wait for this particular activity. So I'm just waiting for this particular services to get provisioned fully with deploying all the environment and all of that. Now, if you are like working with this particular Docker container and all that, right? And if you want to run this particular exercise in your own Docker environment, so here is the command given to you. Okay, you can use this instead of container instance, right? So for example, I don't want to host in my container instance, but I want to run this, as I said, like in my local Docker runtime environment. So you can run this particular command, which basically Docker run command. It will refer to the port number 5000, memory, CPU, and the container image, which is provided by Microsoft Azure, and remaining information, right, like billing, API key, and all of that. With providing all these details, you will be able to run this particular container image in your local Docker environment as well. So for that, you just need to run this particular activity the way it is expected. So let this particular activity to be up and running. So I'm just waiting. This may take few minutes. You can quick check with refreshing this. Once this is get created, we will be testing this in our local environment, and it will provide you some sort of response with that activity. Okay, so the service got created. Okay, so my resources container instance is up and running. And if you see, this is like your particular endpoint, fully qualified domain name, right? So what we are planning to do that here we are going to capture this particular whole URL. We gonna curl this particular you can say text, and that is where we're gonna use our particular fully qualified domain name as a part of it. So let me put this somewhere in my notepad. Okay, and what we need to do here, you need to replace your domain name what you have captured. So copy this, come back to your notepad. Okay, so this is something I'll be replacing it over here. Okay, now in this particular whole command, we are pointing to our AI services hosted. We are pushing text analytics version, languages, content type application JSON. Data is like ASCII value, documents like ID1 text hello world, and that message going to be ping and work with that particular hello AI landscape. And that's where I just wanted to like ping or maybe get some particular response from the environment. So here you need to use this somewhere in your particular code. So you have this rest as cmd. Okay, open this, and here you can replace the command with whatever you have captured. Okay, paste that, replace this particular command and save it. Okay, and now what we need to do that here we are planning to execute, or we just have to run this particular command which we have just now created, because this is where we are planning to like target or execute the particular further activity. So I'll just open my integrated terminal. And as soon as you run this particular activity, it will give you the output, or maybe it will trigger that specific activity. Let me terminate and then retry rest-test.cmd. Okay, I'm just waiting for the response. So in this case, you will get the output with some English and French language resulted. So here, if you see, the output is like reply and response. So curl reply what you have got. So as of now, it says that empty reply from server. Okay, why it is giving me empty? The command has everything: content type, application, data sky. Okay, so I think the activity is same. There is no difference as such. We have posted this particular message. Oh yeah, it says that something looks like failure connection was reset. So sometimes this may be the problem statement, whatever the environment you are running, right? So whatever the particular container instance you are like up and running with it. So it may be possible sometimes your containers may get executed, sometimes it may get terminated, or you just need to keep checking that particular status of it, and then after that if you try to run this, you may get your particular result accordingly. So this could be sometimes problem because we have provisioned very lightweight container instance. So that could be also the result, that sometimes your container instance may get fail, or probably the response may take some time to get your particular output. So usually the output will be the two languages, the English and French, where you whatever the information we have integrated, so those response you will get it from that particular system, and then probably accordingly you may get some particular result out of it. So this is like a kind of approach we have created the container instance. Under that, we have hosted the text analytics related AI services. We have hosted that particular activity. We are testing that particular services with curl, and based on the port number 5000, we have exposed the particular container instance, and then it will help you out in terms of running this particular activity the way it is expected. So if you are working with Windows system, definitely you can leverage this rest test.cmd file. If you are working with Linux instance, you can use this rest test.sh file, right? And you can use this particular command available inside that. So this is basically the references, the lab files and other activity supporting approach is given to you, which you can use it for your development, and then accordingly you will be able to work with it. Now, right now I'm getting this particular output, that empty reply from server. That might be the result because the lowest size what I have provisioned for the configuration. So that could be the result. But yeah, in general, you will get the response from that particular two language options, whatever we do have. So inside our particular solution, whatever the like services we have hosted, the architecture which I have showed, right? So that is something available under this. We have our container instance hosted. So this is my particular standard resource group which we have just now created. My multi AI services like hosted, the image which is container image which we received and hosted somewhere in AI landscape, and with the combination of this, it will help you out in terms of working with your particular services what we are like looking at it. Now, last but not least, after completion of lab, for the cost saving scenario, please make sure that you delete your resource group so that there will be no longer additional charges will be applied to your subscription, and then you can clean up your particular resources safely, right? And this way you will be able to successfully work with sandbox environment, the lab activity, and then in that particular case you will be able to plug and play and work with your particular operational activity or anything maybe you wanted to target or you wanted to work with that options. You will be able to take care, and then accordingly you may simplify all these particular activity the way it is expected. Yeah, so that's all from my end. Like once you are like clean up your resources and all that, here you have the options where you can end the lab as well, and you can say yeah, this lab is completed, and you can click on OK. So your sandbox environment will be like completely decommission, and then if you want to reuse it going forward in future, maybe you can launch this lab again, and then you will be able to work with it. Yeah. So that's where you can have a kind of hands-on activity, and you will be able to work with all those particular approach what we are like looking at it. Yeah. So that's all from my end. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for attending my session on Azure AI landscape and consume Azure AI services, and happy learning. Thank you so much.